everybody, we're going to get started. So I'd like to say welcome to everybody and thank you for joining me for our webinar on Key Performance Indicators, also known as KPIs. My name is Dustin Haley. I am a trainer and project manager at Projetech, and today I'm going to be going over Key Performance Indicators. Before I begin, just some reminders. This webinar is being recorded and all phone lines have been muted. We'll be sending out the recording by the end of the week and we will be answering all your questions at the end of the webinar, so please submit your questions in the field box. I also just want to let you know that if you enjoy this webinar, then you can go find our other videos created by Projetech online. You can either go to our website or go to YouTube and search for Projetech and find them there. Very recently, my coworkers Chris Winston and Tori Foley have had excellent webinars, so I encourage you to go check them out. Okay, so let's get started. IBM has revamped the way that you can use KPIs. There are 3 applications and they all make it easier to create KPIs and get a better picture of what is going on with them. And to put that in a little bit of perspective, it's like when you were a kid. For the first time you were told you were going to go to an amusement park, maybe like Disney World, and you're all excited, but you really don't know anything about it, but you're like, man, I like Disney, so I'm excited. Well, when you finally get there, it's just mind blown, and you're like, this is way more than I expected. And I think that's what they did with KPIs. They opened up the doors and let you see it all for once. Okay, so I am first going to dive into the KPI templates. I'm going to get signed in here. After we go through the KPI templates, I will go through the KPI manager and finally the KPI viewer. And I think by the end of this, you're going to see how all 3 are connected and how they can improve a user's experience with KPIs. So first up is the KPI template. So to get there, we're going to go to up here, a little go-to if you want, or you can always use our little side go-to menu, administration, KPI, and then KPI templates. So administration, KPI, KPI templates. Now the KPI templates is mainly for people who are going to be creating the KPIs and managing them. Typically you have users that will be looking at them to gather information, but they're usually not associated with this. You usually have an admin of sorts creating your templates. So that's who this is designed for. Basically what this allows you to do is create multiple KPIs once, and you're allowed to add in variables to your SQL and then set those values, and that'll allow you to switch it up so that you can put in more work types, site IDs, priorities, anything that you want as a variable. And once we get into this, you'll get a better picture of how that's working. They've also done a really good job of automating this, so you're not having to input as much information and making sure that you're putting in the correct information. So I'm going to do a quick search for some of these that are already out of the box in there. And what I'm going to do is use this backlog work orders one. So I'm going to click on it. And here we get an idea of what the KPI template looks like. So you have your template number, which this is just a random number, but you can change that if you want. And you have a short description of it. Now, one of the most important pieces that a lot of people overlook is the long description. And the long description is going to travel from the template to the manager all the way to the KPI viewer, which is what most users are going to see is the KPI viewer. So you want to make sure that you are actually describing these KPIs. You know, you want to say what they are, how they're being created, and you know what use you can use for them, even your targets. If you put in some basic generic information, you know, after a while people forget, people leave the company, someone gets sick, they're going to forget what these KPIs are for, and you'd have to reinvestigate all this. So you want to make sure that you put in really good long descriptions. I typically like to bullet mine. So this one is just kind of a basic one, but it's saying it represents all the backlog work orders in the system, and it's telling me what work types it's looking at, and then it's also giving me a purpose for it. So again, long description, it's very important. Make sure that when you are creating these KPIs that you're putting very good descriptive information in there for your users. Okay. Over here, there are the created and revised by dates, which is, you know, almost self-explanatory, who created it and then when's the last time somebody revised it. Over here is our application, which is set for this specific one for WOTRAC, work order tracking. You have your format, which you can either do a percentage or decimal. So decimal is converting it into an actual number, where a percentage is a percentage. Now the next tab over is the KPI query, and this is the heart of it. This is what's making this run. So whenever you're putting in this query, you're allowed to put in a variable, and the variable is identified by the $ and these brackets. So you can see it says work type equals $ bracket work type, and then close the bracket. That's our variable. That's what's going to be pulling this information for us. Now next is the KPI variables. This has our variable, our work type, and it has the object that's coming from the work order, the attribute work type, what type it is, and this one is upper. And right below that is the actual KPIs. So these are they will be 4 different KPIs once they get created. And what you're doing here is you're setting the target, your caution, and your alert at. You can also say if it's going to be public and then making it active or not. And each one of these KPIs has a different variable value on the bottom. So you can see 18 is connected with a EM work type, but if I go to this 19, you'll see it's a CM. The next one is for PMs, and the last one is for a CP. So each one of these 4 will be its own individual KPI once we generate these, and they're all based off of whatever variable value that I put in down there. Now what I like about this is this makes it a lot easier to get a nice overview glance at what you're doing whenever you're creating these templates. Before you would have went to maybe the list tab and created this, or even KPI Manager, but you could never get a view like this where you're creating all of them based off your same query. You know that your variable is correct, and you know that your values are getting inputted the way that you want them, and you can get a view out of all the different targets, caution, and alerts that you have. So I think they did a really good job of setting this up, making it easier to get a nice overview of this. Now at this point, basically you can go ahead and create your KPIs, and the way I can do that is hit this Generate KPIs on the side, and it will say 4 KPIs were created for the 1003 template. Now, if you've already created KPIs off this template, what it does is it'll go and find the ones that are in the Manager, KPI Manager application, and it just overrides them with whatever new values that you have entered. So if you change the target, caution, alerts, you changed the variables, you added variables, you changed the value of the variables, all that information will just go right on over and update your current KPI Manager. So what I'm going to do now is create a brand new template so that way you guys can see how that's working. I'm going to show you guys a few tips and tricks that you can use along the way to make it a lot easier for yourself. So what I like to do whenever I'm creating one of these new is I don't want to have to try and type out all of this information every single time. I can save time and actually go over to the application it's going to be based off of and get my query from there. So I'm going to do one for work orders. So I'm going to go over to the work order tracking application. What I'm going to do is create one that will allow me to set a variable for the site ID and the work types. And basically what it's going to be is all open work orders for a specific site and a specific work type. So I'm going to go over my class here. I'm going to delete out activity because I don't care about that. I only want my class to be work order. I'm going to go ahead and delete out site because I'm going to add that on my own. I want the history to be no and I want is_task to be no. I will set my status to be !equals COMP, which means does not equal complete. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit find. And it's spinning, it's coming, it's coming. All right, there we go. So it came back with 594 records. So what I can do now is I can come up here to advanced search or over here on the search field, hit this, go to where clause, and here is part of my SQL statement that I need right here. So I can just copy this, and now I can paste that into a new template for me to use and just add in the rest of it. So I'm going to go administration, KPI, KPI templates, hit my new record button, okay, and here is a brand new KPI for me to add in. So this is going to be, like I said, open work orders. Again, you want to make sure that with your long description you're putting in a very good detailed long description. I'm not going to spend too much time on this so that we're not wasting all our time putting in long descriptions, but just reiterate that this is a very, very important piece for the users. So this is to show all open work orders and to ensure they are closed in a timely manner. So we'll use that. That'll work for now. That's actually not that great of a long description, but again, we don't want to waste all our time for that. So our application, we want it to be WOTrack. Our format, the other one we looked at was percentage. On this one, I'm going to do decimal. And I'm going to paste in that string that I had in there earlier. Now there are some things that you are going to have to add in yourself, and I'll tell you what they are here. So what you want to add in is a select, and this is for this specific query. Other queries you may want to do it differently, but select count, and close that off with WONUM from work order. Okay. And the next piece is you want to make sure you're putting in your variables. So what I like to do is after I put in like the select count WONUM from work order, I actually like to put my variables in the front just to make it easier for other people to find later on. So I'm going to put in work type equals $ bracket work type bracket, and I want to do one for my site ID, so I'll put site ID $ bracket site ID, close the bracket, put another and on there. So here's what I added. I added the select count WONUM from work order. I added my two variables, work type equals my $ bracket work type, and my site ID, almost forgot my equal sign, site ID equals $ bracket site ID, and then it continues on from there. Okay, so this is where I said earlier they automate some of this stuff for you in the KPI templates, and this is where it starts coming into play. And I really like it because it saves me time. So I can hit new row, and Maximo automatically goes and looks for the variables that have been created. So it found my work type variable and automatically put it in here. So I can put in my object. It's from work order, so I'll pick work order. My attribute, this one is off of work type. So I'll choose work type, and it also automatically puts in the type for me, which is important because your type is connected to your variable value at the bottom. If I hit new row again, it finds the other variable that I have in there, which is site ID. So automation, I really like it because it's adding all those in there. It's less stuff for me to add in there and search for. So here's a tip for you guys. You may know this if you worked with 7.6 long enough or other versions, but typically if I type in work order, there is, and hit tab, there are other fields in here that have, or other values that have work order in here, like work order spec. And you have to come inside here and hit that, and then it'll go in there, which I hear a lot of users complain about that they'd rather not have to select that every time. They'd rather just type it in there, hit tab, and go. Well, you can do that. I'm going to type in work order again. If you put a space behind it, put a space in there, tab out, and boom, it takes it. Okay? So if that is a brand new thing for you guys, you can go ahead and tweet that, hashtag pro tip. But if you already knew that, well, you're already a pro and you know that. So, but I really like that, and most users do too. Okay, so now we're going to add in site ID, and my type is also going to be upper also. Automatically puts that in there for me. All right, now we're at the KPI piece, and this is how many KPIs do you want, how many KPIs you're going to create. So in my mind, I want to create 2 or 3. Yeah, let's go 3. 2 for Bedford, one where my site or my work type is PM, another one CM, and then maybe another one for Denver where my work type is PM. So I would create 3 of them. So I'll hit new row. Okay, and I can go ahead and put in my values. So I'm going to do 40, 50, and I'm going to alert at 60. Again, I can make this public so everyone can see it, or leave it blank. And then I have active. Is it active? So I'm going to hit new row, create another one. And another piece that I like is that it automatically carries over the same target, caution, and alerts at. That's very helpful if you're doing some that are the same over and over and over. I'm actually going to change these though. So let's do 25, 40, 65. Sounds good. And then I'm going to do one more, so I have one for Denver, and I'm going to go ahead and leave my target, caution, and alert the same. Now for each one of these, I will input my variable values for my site ID and my work type. So for this first one, I'm going to do Bedford, if I can spell it right, Bedford. And then my work type for this one is going to be CM. I'm going to go to my next one, Bedford. Oh, typed a little fast for it. Bedford. And I'm going to do PM. And then the last one I said I was going to do Denver. And this one will be PM. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and save this. Okay, and if it's saving, that means you did everything that you were supposed to and accepts it. Now, if one of the things that I really like, which some people may say it's annoying, but I like it, is if I take out my variables and I try to save this, I'm going to get an error that tells me that errors exist in the application. Okay, so what you have to do is make sure that you get your variables in there. Otherwise, it's going to give you that error every time. And that can be annoying sometimes, but again, I like that because it's going to make sure that you don't go through all this work creating all these individual KPIs, and then, you know, at the very end you find out that, oh, well, I messed up and I didn't actually need these all the time. I like to think of it, it's like you have that mentor and they're like really serious on you all the time and you're like, man, I wish they'd back off, but in the end you're always glad that they're there so that you're not messing up. All right, save that. Oh, edit my value, paste that back in, space, now I'll save it. All right, good. So it's in there now, and what I can do now is create some KPIs off of this. So I'm going to go to Generate KPIs. Oh, I got an error somewhere. Okay, work order equals work type. All right, hold on. Let me figure this out. I don't know why this is not working for me. Let me refresh this.
Need a where.
Ah, thank you, Chris.
Artie came up with it first. I just saw a note.
Where?
Thank you, Artie.
Oh, Artie saved us. Thank you, Artie. All right, so we have these three KPIs that were created for our 1012 template. And then over on the right, you can see we created it and then when we revised it. So now what we're going to do is go over to the KPI Manager application and update that. So we're going to go to Administration, KPI, KPI Manager. Okay. Over on my template, I can put in my template that I created earlier, which was 1012. And you can see those are the three open work orders that I had in here. You got different colors that'll pop up in KPI Manager, just like you will when you guys see the KPI viewer. And basically the green is when you're at your target value, you got your yellow at your caution at, and your red is when you are at the alert at. Okay, so with the KPIs Manager's main pieces is that you're going to individually update and control your KPIs. With the template, you're mass producing them, and the Manager app, you've went down lower and you're going to control them individually. So I'm going to click on the very first one. Okay, and all the information that I entered in from my template has went ahead and carried over. It's got my short description. It's got this long description. Again, it's very important. But you can also update this to be even more detailed if you need it to be. So this one was for the Bedford site and work type is CM. So I'll just add that in there. My calculation type carried over. And you can see in your query it no longer has the variables, the $ brackets anymore. This has actually been converted to what we put in that value, which for this one was CM and Bedford. If we go to the next one, we'll see this one's PM in Bedford, and the last one was the PM in Denver. So depending on what you have entered in, those values will replace those variables, which is nice, so that your user's not trying to figure out what that is. Down on the bottom, you have our KPI parameters. This is what we set them at. Okay, your graph. This is typically what you're probably already used to seeing. But a nice feature that they have added in here is security. So and this is public. If you check it, obviously it means it's public, and that means that everybody is allowed to see it. However, if you leave it blank, you can come over to the security tab, and inside here you can add in specific security groups to make sure that only certain people can see it. Now what's nice about this is you can set this for security reasons. Say you only want certain groups to see it. Maybe it has sensitive information that you don't need others to see it in. And I'm going to pick maintenance. And I'll just do max admin. Maybe these are the only two groups that you actually want to see it or should see it. But the other thing is it makes it a lot cleaner for your users when they are using the KPI viewer application. So that way they're not seeing every single KPI that's ever been created because everything's been made public. They're only seeing the ones that are important to them and that they actually care about. So it's a good security tool to make sure only the right people are seeing it, and it also makes it so it's a lot cleaner in Maximo. The next piece is the historical trends, this tab here. Now this one isn't obviously going to have any information because I just created it, but over time you'll be able to see all the different values that this KPI has been pulling. This can be a really powerful tool to pick up on trends. So I'll go over a little bit more of that in the KPI viewer when we see some older ones. But this is a very good tool that doesn't seem to get used as much as it should be. The log tab will let you send emails. So this is available in other applications. But you can create a communication, which is basically saying you're creating an email, input information about the KPI and send it out to people, and it will save it in here. And what's nice about that is if you have questions about, if you're creating this for somebody and they ask you to tweak it, you can go ahead and send a confirmation that you updated it, or maybe you're sending an email to ask them about a specific question on it, and all that's going to get saved in here so that anytime someone comes in, they can see what people have been updating and what questions have arisen about it. So a very nice tool to use. Now the next part is scheduling, which is new in here. Before in KPI Manager, basically all your schedules were set off of a cron task that was created within the cron task for KPIs. And you would probably run that every day to get all your KPIs to run. But if you have a KPI that you're only using maybe monthly, weekly, quarterly, or even possibly yearly, then you don't need it to run every day. And it's honestly just a waste of the system's time trying to run that KPI when it's only being needed once a month or once a quarter, once a year. So now what they've done is they've added the ability to create multiple schedules in the cron task application. So you can create various schedules and then apply them to the KPI manager so that your KPIs are running only on those times. So I can hit schedule KPI, hit new row, and then when I hit this, these are just some random ones I've created. I created a daily one, a monthly one, and a weekly one. So let's say we want this one to run every day. I can hit OK. And now this one is set to run every single day instead of whatever the cron task used to say. Or if you want it to be monthly, you can go in there and update that too. So this is a really cool feature that I like because we had a lot of different KPIs in our client systems and they weren't always going to need those every day. So I'm a big fan of this feature. And then in the list tab, let's say you created these three. Okay, I created these three, and I need them actually to be all on the same schedule. Well, when I bring them up in the KPI manager, I can hit Add Schedule. Whoops, got to select my records first. Hit Add Schedule, and then pick what instance, what cron task I wanted to run at. So if I did actually want them all to be weekly, I can just say weekly, hit OK, and then now they're all going to be set to be run on a weekly schedule. So this saves a lot of time for the actual system, so it's not worrying about every single KPI. Okay, so now the next piece is to actually go over to the KPI viewer application. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the go to Analytics, and then KPI Viewer. So it's a little bit different than the other two. It's go to Analytics, KPI Viewer. Okay, now in the older versions, the only way you were going to look at KPIs was on your Start Center, or you could go to KPI Manager in 7.5 to get a quick peek at the KPIs itself. Those are nice, but if you had a large number of KPIs that you need to look at and they were on your Start Center, depending on your connection, it could take quite a while for those to load up. And you weren't really getting a good historical trend of the KPIs. You couldn't get the whole picture of them. You're only just getting a quick snapshot of what is going on now. So what they've done is they've added in KPI Viewer, which will clean up your Start Centers because you don't have to have them on there unless you want to see them when you first log in. And they're giving you more information to look at all at once. So you're kind of getting an idea of, with the KPI, what is it for, what is it doing, and what's it measured in the past. Okay, so I'm going to use KPI for open work orders waiting approval so you guys can kind of see a quick snapshot of what these look at. When you first come in, the very first thing that's in here is your long description. So I've been kind of stressing that throughout the whole webinar that it's kind of important, and it's more than kind of important, it's very important. This is what's telling your user what this KPI is for, what it's measuring, and basically how they can use it. So you can see inside here there's a pretty good one. They have their description, what their target values should be. They even have a scheduled run time, and who is it for, who's the intended audience. So this is a pretty well put together long description if you guys want to get an idea of what a good one looks at. You have your current information, your KPI information that's been run last. So the next piece or the next tab of this is our historical trends. Okay, and I like this. I've told you guys before it can be a really powerful tool because if you start looking at your KPIs over months, years even, you'll start to get an idea of when things are happening. You know, maybe during a certain month of the year you see that your work orders, the input, how many are input rise, or maybe how many are overdue rise. Even during the month, maybe during certain times of the month you realize that, hey, you know, I'm getting more work orders entered, or we're getting delayed. You know, you can use this to start trying to find out, is your business process part of it broken? Does something need to be adjusted? And then even if the KPI itself needs to be adjusted. So inside here you can put in a from and to date. Let's see, I'll back this up a few years. Oh, it stayed on. Change that to be 212 and refresh it. Okay, so now we're in there. All right, so wow, this is a bit too long. It's showing days. Let's do months. And it's still a little chaotic. Let's do years. Still chaotic. All right, well, this is a bit too wide, but you guys can kind of get an idea of how you can use this. You'll see you got your chart here, and it is showing you your trends. You can also see your values of what it currently is and what it has been in. So again, this can be a powerful tool for you guys to figure out what's going on with your KPIs and if something's broken in your business process or something needs to be updated, or even if the KPI is just not running at the way you thought it should. And the last piece is this log tab. So what's nice about this communication log, again, you saw it in another one, is you're able to send out emails about these specific KPIs to someone to find out questions on it. You know, why is our KPI or alert at so high this month, or you know, do we need to adjust this? Different things, and you have a history of all the different questions that have been asked about it. One of my favorite features of Maximo, simply because you're sending emails and you're going to get a history of everything that's been going on with them. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is show you guys some more examples of KPIs that you guys can create. So what I'm going to do is go back to the KPI template. So again, that's go to administration, KPI templates. And if I go to the one that I created earlier, the open work orders, I can adjust this one. As I told you guys earlier, I can adjust this, hit generate KPIs, and then it will update any of the KPIs that I previously had created. So I get questions sometimes on like, what are some really good KPIs to have, or what is the typical KPI to have? And there really isn't a typical answer. It's based off of your business process. So if you guys are mainly focused on counting of work orders and getting them completed, then you're going to want to create KPIs towards that. If you're more into inventory, maybe you're going over there and creating total amounts for that kind of stuff. So it really depends on your business process. There's definitely no single KPI that's a one-for-all for every business. But here are a few examples of some that you can create. Pretty easy, these first few ones. So I can just type in and what I'm going to do is this first one is going to be anything that is past its scheduled finish date. So I want to find out how many KPIs do I have that are past their scheduled finish date. So I can just add on the back of here, sched finish, and then do a less than equal to get date for today's date, minus 30. And basically what that does is it tells the system I want everything that is where the scheduled date is within a month of today. So anything that's been a month over. So that's kind of a simple one that you guys can add in there. Another one is if you want to find out how many have been created in the past month, you can just change this schedule finish to report date. And that's basically doing the same thing. It's just looking at everything where the reported date is 30 days in the past from today's date. Now I can't get into like all the teaching you guys SQL and explaining how everything works, but if you guys go back through this video, you can always take a look at these and copy them out and use them. So I'm going to show you guys a few more advanced ones that I can go over into the KPI Manager application. So I'm going to go KPI Manager. I'm just going to create a brand new one. Okay, and for this one, these aren't dealing with the templates. They're just me creating them in KPI Manager. There's a couple of queries that I already had saved on another screen that I'm just going to copy and paste over. And what you guys can do is, like I said, go back and use this, watch this video again and get these queries if you want. Basically what this one is doing is it's saying I want the average number of days that PMs are overdue. So I have my select statement inside here and my where statement over here. You don't always have to have a where statement in. You can actually include it in select, but it does help clean it up and makes it a little easier to read for people that are familiar with SQL. Okay, so again, if you want to use these, you guys can. You just have to rewatch the video and copy them from there. Another one that I like is the percentage, and since this is percentage, I would want to make sure my calculation type is changed from decimal to percentage. And this is the number, the percentage of work orders that in the past year that have been completed. So it's kind of giving you an overview of how many have you guys been completing throughout the year. Okay, another one for work orders, and this one is pretty common. I see a lot of people that like to use this one. Okay, this one is actually show me the percentage of PMs that have been completed on time. So you can use this to make sure that your PMs are actually being completed on time and they're not being overdue or going overboard every single time. And the last one I'm going to show you guys, this one is pretty long, but it can be useful for you if you like inventory. And what this is doing is it's showing you what is the total value of your inventory inside Maximo so that you can make sure you stay within a certain range. So like I said, it's pretty long. So if you are going to come back and use this and rewatch it, I'll just kind of scroll this down so that you can get a view of all of it. And then I also need to put in my where statement. And what this is basically saying is show me everything in my central storeroom that's in Bedford and show me the total value of that storeroom. So I'm going to just set a little caution out here, do 100,000, 120, 130 for my alert, save that. Okay, I believe if I go back in it should, oh it hasn't run yet. Okay, but anyways, this is another good one that you guys can use to see your total inventory, how much has been put in there. Some other ones that I've been told about, I'm not going to put the queries up here, but these will just kind of give you guys ideas of different types of KPIs that you can create. Average work order completion time, your average response time for emergency work orders, your open work orders waiting approval, your average age of work orders, how long are they open before they're getting closed. And I think another good one is how many planned work orders do you have out there within the past certain amount of days? How many of those have job plans with them? It's kind of giving you an idea of different KPIs that you want to create. Okay, so that's all that I'm going to show you guys today. So I want to thank you for showing up. I believe we had probably some questions that come through. Oh, no. Okay, all right. So one of the questions, let's see. Okay. Where can you view the data that goes with the KPI to confirm the information is correct when creating them? I mean, you got to go into Maximo, and you can basically use these same queries and go in there and paste them into your list tab, and you can see if they're coming up with the same information that way. New to 7.6, what is the value EMCP and type upper? Well, the value for EM is emergency maintenance. CP, let me actually look that one up real quick. Type upper in there is actually basically saying that you want it to be all uppercase. So if you see type upper, that's what that is. Sometimes you see like integer and different things like that. CP is capital project. Okay, just going through some different questions. So, is it possible to work clause the reports we talked about at the end? I don't know if I'm able to send out a mass email to everybody, but if I can, I will actually copy down all the different queries that I had and send them out. I'll have to ask my team if that's possible. Okay, we are going to take a look at the rest of the questions and email you guys back on anything that we weren't able to answer today. So again, I just want to thank you guys for showing up. I'm going to show this little PowerPoint presentation because I was told to make sure it came up. Oh. Oh. All right, so basically what this is it's our next webinar that we have coming out. And it's going to be Wednesday, March 15th, 2017 at 2 p.m. Eastern. We have our Maximo specialist and project coordinator, Tori Foley, who's going to be covering inventory reorder and calculation planning in Maximo. You can visit projetech.com/webinars down here in the bottom to register for that. And please make sure you take our survey after the webinar. We use that information to improve ourselves. So I just, again, thank you for showing up. And if you have any questions, you can email me directly at dhaley@projetech.com. So D as in Delta, Haley@projetech.com. Thank you.